just wondering if you could tell us who you are and what your job is.
Sure. So my name's Hannah and I'm a cyber investigator and I work for a company called GE Aviation. Now, cyber investigator, like the job, it sounds really cool. And so essentially I work in cybersecurity and I do something called insider threat. So essentially what we want to try and do is we want to stop GE's property, so General Electric's property, from leaving the company, so GE's intellectual property, because it's really important that we keep it within the company, because if that goes out of the company, then GE could lose money, our customers could lose money, and our suppliers could lose money, and it would be really bad. So what I do as a cyber investigator is I monitor any way that we could get information out of the company. So that's emails, so people sending emails to external email addresses like their personal email or like another company. And then also we monitor stuff going like up to like the cloud or like Facebook, so like uploads to the internet, and then people putting things on like hard drive or removable media, so like that could be USB, CD or floppy disks. It's really interesting, and I didn't expect to be doing this when I was in school or when I was at university or like 2 years ago when I started my graduate scheme.
Brilliant. So you've covered a bit of the next question already, but what sorts of activities are involved in your job?
So I do a mixture of covering the different channels, so we call them the queues. So I cover the email queue and the uploads queue. But then I also, so whenever someone does want to plug in a USB or like have a CD drive or a floppy disk or anything like that, then they need to have a specific, like what we call an exception. So they have to have a specific reason for wanting to use that, and so so that you have to implement that using software, and so I do a lot of those implementations. I also do, so what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it so our processes run better and more efficient, really. And so I'm trying to help write some software so that we can improve the way that our processes are done, and I find it really interesting.
Brilliant, thank you. It sounds really interesting. How did you get involved in your job role?
Oh gosh, so this is a bit confusing. So when I was in school, I loved maths, physics, and asking questions. And I'm quite like 3D. I love using my hands. And so I was trying to figure out kind of how I could combine all of those things. So I did chemistry, physics, and maths for A level just because they were the subjects that I liked. And then I was looking at what to do for university to try and go like the traditional route, and so I kind of fell into engineering because engineering is a great combination of maths, physics, and asking questions and kind of doing stuff that's practical. So doing stuff, either with your hands, so whether that's doing hardware or software, it's all very like practical, and I love that. And so I did electronic engineering at university, and then I decided that it'd be good to see what electronic engineering was like in industry. So before kind of choosing a job to do day to day, so like for the rest of my career. So I did a graduate scheme when I finished university, and so I was lucky enough to get onto the Edison Engineering Development Program, which is run by GE Aviation. So GE was founded by Thomas Edison, who's the guy who did the light bulb. And so on the Edison program, I was able to do 3 different rotations. So like 3 different like periods of time. So it was 8 months in different areas of the business, doing different jobs. And that was really helpful. So what I learned is that I didn't like hardware engineering, didn't like it at all, didn't like the team really, but like we have like 1,800 people on our site. So in reality, I just didn't like that one team that I was with, but I just thought, let's not do hardware again. But then my second rotation, I did software engineering, and I really liked software engineering. But what I liked about it was I liked actually doing the software. So I didn't really like, because we're an aviation company, so obviously we can't just write a piece of code and then it will go straight up and be on a product that will then go in on a plane. That won't happen. It has to go through loads of processes, and so I didn't like the amount of code that I'd write versus the amount of like the output. And so I figured that I should probably try and do something which is more interactive, so I can write more software. And I happened to be volunteering for an event one day. We do a lot of volunteering on our site, and so I was volunteering for an event, And there was someone there who I didn't recognize. So I went and spoke to him, and he worked as a cybersecurity software engineer. And my ears perked up. I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds incredible. Can I get involved? And after quite a lot of conversations, I was able to do my final rotation in cybersecurity software engineering. And I found it absolutely fascinating. I loved it so much. It was so cool. And more to the point, the team were just so nice. And so when it came to figuring out what I wanted to do for a roll-off job, so what I wanted to do after my graduate scheme, I thought I might as well just stay in the team and learn a lot about cybersecurity and just learn on the job. And so that's what I did. And it's been 9 months and I'm absolutely loving it.
So obviously now you're within the company, what sorts of training do you have to develop yourself in that role?
So since finishing, my graduate scheme had a lot of training, but it was mainly like engineering and aviation based, but it was still like literally we did like 32 something weeks of lectures with homework and everything. That was part of my graduate scheme. Since going on to cyber, I've had quite a lot of training and will continue to have a lot of training, both kind of formal. So there are lots of courses that are out there which you can either pay a lot of money for or your company can pay a lot of money for. But there are lots of free cybersecurity trainings out there because cyber is the best. And so I've done quite a lot of those types of courses. But then I've also had a lot of training by people like on site and in my team, and then in my team in the US, about how to use the tools and the processes that we do in our area. So I haven't really stopped learning. Like I've probably had a training thing probably once every other week at least since I started, and it's been really, really helpful because I literally came into my cybersecurity job with no knowledge of cybersecurity at all, and now I feel like I'm vaguely competent. So and like I've got so much training planned for the rest of the year and like the next 2 years. So I haven't stopped learning and I don't plan on stopping.
Brilliant. What sorts of personal qualities do you think have helped you to be successful at this role?
So I would say definitely like networking and being able to talk to other people. So both networking in terms of talking to other people at like events and stuff, but then also just communicating, because there are lots of people who you need to talk to in a day job really. So there's your team, so the people who you directly interact with most every day, but then also like you have to consider who like your customers are. So like for me, because I don't work like on a product, so my customers are the people around my site, so I have to kind of think about how I communicate with them every day. And then also my team in the US, because I've never met them face to face, so they've only seen me in kind of like a box, so I have to consider how I talk to them. And so communication is so key. Networking was kind of the way that I got my job, but then being able to kind of present, so presenting, whether it's presenting about what I've done like every day or presenting like this type of thing, like it's so important. And then teamwork, because like what I do, like I hardly ever kind of work solely by myself. I'm normally working with the other people in my team, and teamwork is so key in engineering. Such a good skill.
Brilliant, thank you. And what would you say are the key challenges of your job?
So for me, because I'm still learning a lot, I'm still trying to figure out what the personal challenges are in cybersecurity. Definitely trying to learn a lot and like keeping learning, keeping asking questions is a real personal challenge, because I'm trying my best to like ask the right people the right questions. But then also, because we're in cybersecurity, it's such a big field and it's such a growing field. Like there's a huge skills gap in cybersecurity because there are so many more jobs that are out there than there are professionals to take those jobs, which is great, but it means that there's also a lot of work to do. So kind of balancing the workload and figuring out kind of what's the right priority is a real challenge at the moment. But it's like a really good challenge. Like I'd prefer to have that as a challenge and to be trying to figure out like what work there is to do, rather than having like an excess amount of work, which is kind of what we've got at the moment.
Brilliant. And what would you say are the key rewards of your job?
Oh, so I really like that I get to talk to people, and that because in reality what we're doing is we're helping the company and we're helping people to do their jobs. Like if someone tried to plug in a USB to do their work, you know, and you know, we weren't there to do it, then like we weren't there to like implement the exception and do the work behind it, then stuff wouldn't kind of get done. So I suppose for me it's quite rewarding to be kind of in like the behind the scenes aspect, because like you only know, so you like a company, like I'd hope that a company would only know about cybersecurity when it goes wrong, and so if it doesn't go wrong, then that's all a good thing.
Brilliant. And what advice would you give to a young person thinking of doing a career like yours?
Oh, try everything. Like you never know what's gonna hit and what you're gonna think is gonna be the right thing for you. And then even then, once you've found something that you think might be right, then it might, you know, you might be able to change your mind in a few years. I mean, you know, it doesn't really matter. Like I know people who are all ages who've actually just changed their careers because, you know, they found something that they prefer. So try anything. You never know what you're going to end up loving. I didn't know that I'd end up in cybersecurity. Like if you'd have told me this when I was at uni, I wouldn't have believed you. Or if you'd have told me this even when I started my graduate scheme, I wouldn't have believed you. So definitely try anything, and also don't worry about failure. Really, I suppose it's quite key. So like I did really badly at A level. I got CDD, and I thought that it would be the end of the world. That, you know, oh my gosh, I haven't done well in my A levels. That means that I won't be able to get into a good university. That means I won't be able to get, you know, a good job after. But I got into, I was lucky in that one university decided to kind of, you know, believe in me, and so I then thought I'd just, you know, take every chance that I had when I was at that university to then try and like shine and stand out and make it so that, you know, I'm not my A-level grades, you know, they don't define me. And so, you know, I like to think that I did that, but, you know, so yeah, don't worry if you fail on an exam, you know, it's not the end of the world, seriously. So yeah.
That's brilliant. Thanks ever so much for that. It sounds absolutely fascinating, your job, and I'm sure it'll inspire other children to do the same thing.
It's really fun.